Hello and welcome to Two Tangle Tuesday, where we do two tangles in 20 minutes or less. Today, we're going to be drawing Portal and Alea. And before I get started, I just wanted to mention that if you like these videos, I would absolutely love it if you would become a subscriber to my channel. So I'm not going to draw a frame, but to start off with Portal, I am going to actually draw a couple of marks for myself just to help me with the drawing. So I want to use this and kind of just eyeball, like very light pencil mark, like that's the middle. It's close enough to the middle, right? And these are very, very light lines. Alrighty. And then one thing that you can do too is you go down like a little tiny bit and put like a little mark there. You could put a dot if you don't want to put a pencil mark. And what you're trying to do is get sort of even as possible as you can, just eyeballing it, putting a little mark there. Okay. Now this will help me draw. You don't have to do this, but it just helps me draw a little bit. And I can see mine aren't exactly in exact proportions, but that's okay because it's Zentangle, right? So what we're going to do is we're going to draw a line. Okay. And then now we come up there with a diamond or a square, depending on how you look at it, but it's a diamond because that's what we want it to be. Okay, it could be a square. But so the next step for Portal is we're going to aura these lines, but not all the way. So about that much. We are leaving a big space between these. So I know sometimes we aura pretty close, but not in this instance. Okay. And now the next step is we're going to connect these with C shapes. Now, sometimes you get like one that you just made too short, and that's okay. So this one looks fine. So I'm going to show you just what we're going to do. So, okay. And if you decide, oh, that's like a little too short, you can just add a little if you want. And that's perfectly fine, right? Nobody's grading our drawing method. And that is basically how you do Portal. Okay? It's kind of boring though, and it doesn't really look like much without the shading. And the shading is where Portal gets is the important part of Portal. Okay, that's where it looks like really super cool. So I'm going to go through the shading. So, and I know usually I do the shading at the end, but just so that you can see how this kind of ends up. So, and for shading for Zentangle, we usually don't really pay a lot of attention to where the pencil goes. But for this one, we're going to pay a little bit of attention. So we're going to go on the top of each. And the bottom. pretty standard so far. And then I'm going to smooth that out. Now, you don't want to smooth that out so much, though, that you can't see some of your tile spacing. But we are going to leave some tile space. Now, here's where it gets a little bit different for each side, okay? What we're going to do is we're just going to pick a side, and we're going to put some on the top here, okay? And also blend that out. And then we're going to add some here in these little corners. And then we're going to add some here in that corner. Okay. So you can kind of see now, it does kind of look like the paper is kind of curling up and you're looking into whatever is in here. And I think that looks really super cool. So I'm going to erase this X that I made because it'll get in my way and make me confused. Okay, so that's Portal. So it's very interesting. You could put so many things inside this triangle or square, however you decide to look at it. So now we're going to do Alea. Now, if you look at the step outs for Alea, there is actually a couple of different ways to do it. And I've tried it different ways. And I think that it looks better with Portal in a grid. So but it's a very small grid. So as even as possible, right? Not even, that's okay. It's still going to look cool. And so the first step for Alea is you kind of follow that line and you make like a spiral, okay? And then you mirror that and you make another spiral like this, okay? And then you kind of aura that and you get kind of connected mucas, right? And so then you do an orb, and I'm gonna leave a highlight for that orb. Well, it's not a very big highlight, but that's what it is. And then you do kind of like a teardrop shape like this. Okay. And then the next part of Alea is one that I find I have a little trouble with, but I think I can get it. So basically, you're following this line and you're making kind of like a shape like that. Okay. It definitely goes all the way out to the edge. Okay. And then you do the same thing all the way around. And that is basically how you do Alea. That looks pretty cool. Now let's decide how we're going to shade this a bit. I think what I'm going to do is just add a little bit of dimension to these. So I'm going to put some graphite here. And maybe at the bottom of each of these little teardrop shapes. Alrighty. And I'm using this really skinny tortillon because it's not a big space to kind of smooth these out. So I don't want to go in kind of inside the heart or anything like that. Oh, I thought of something else we could do. So, and then these I'm just gonna gently kind of flick up the graphite. Okay. So it looks really cool like that, right? But one of the things that they do on the step outs is this. I forgot this part, so they add some lines in there. And then I think it adds a little bit more intricacy. So you certainly don't have to do that, but I think it looks cool. And there is Portal and Alea.